The story starts with a woman talking to her son, pointing to a small girl before them and saying this girl is his wife, and that he can play with her until he eventually gets tired of her. The young girl, Teresa, wonders in shock if she is the thing they are talking about, and feels her new mother-in-law's statement is a great exaggeration. She keeps thinking it is wrong to say that to a 10-year-old child, and worries what will occur if her husband plays with her when he is older, and then chooses to play with his parents instead. It was at that moment she understood why events happened this way in the original novel. Teresa finds out she has been reborn as a person in a book called The Villainess Only Wants a Money Road, where she is now Teresa Amole, the only younger sister of the main character, Moria. Different from Moria, who performed miracles for their poor family using her holy power, Teresa was unwell and considered useless, being nothing more than a burden to her family. On the same day her sister joined the temple to be a saint, her parents, the Count and Countess, sold her at age 10 to the Duke's family for an extremely low price. In this way, Teresa ended up at her new husband's house, the Duke's palace, where she had been sold. There, the Duchess commanded a follower to go give the money to Teresa's father, who was insisting. Then the Duchess looked at Teresa, hoping that taking her in would not become a terrible mistake. As Teresa knelt in front of them, she thought to herself that she was unlucky with her parents and her in-laws. She sighed deeply, wondering why, out of all possible places, she was reborn into this specific one. She was frustrated since she had awoken in this body just one day before being sold. If she had come sooner, she could have possibly resisted what occurred. Teresa recalls what occurred the previous day, when her sister grabbed her clothing collar and angrily asked if she was crazy, after Teresa suddenly asked her if this was all a dream. Her sister said her behavior would not alter her certain fate of being sold the very next day to the place called the Serpent's Den. And she also said that she should be glad that she, the useless girl, would at last bring some money to the family. Teresa understood that her sister truly was a villain, who was obsessed with money, exactly as described in the novel. This helped her understand the reason why the novel had that specific name. Her thinking was suddenly stopped by a quiet voice nearby. She then discovered a small boy standing before her, who was apologizing for her having to marry a person like him. Teresa stared at him with complete and utter astonishment, and she then understood that this young boy was her husband, Caprio Nectarine, the one who would become a psychopathic villain and drown the entire world in blood when he became an adult. Caprio was born having snake scales on his body and a magical curse, which resulted in him being called a monster and imprisoned inside a remote palace on the Duke's property. And when he becomes an adult, motivated by revenge, he will cruelly murder the Duke's family, including his own wife. Teresa would be no exception. Teresa considered her unhappy destiny, trapped between a terrible sister and a husband who was fated to become a crazy murderer. Nevertheless, she looked over at the small boy and said to him that everything was all right. She believed that if the Duke's family had not accepted her, her destiny would be far worse, as she could have ended up sleeping in a hut without a roof. While she was looking at him, a new thought appeared. Perhaps she could stop Caprio from following this terrible path and instead raise him the right way. He appeared very kind as a child, and because they were both unfortunate with their parents, she felt they should look after one another. Teresa experienced a unique and weird feeling as she inhabited one of the characters' bodies, but she was very determined that she would succeed with her important mission. She asked Caprio to show her his bedroom, saying she wanted to see the location where they were going to live together. Following a moment of hesitation, Caprio made an offer to carry her travel bag for her. Teresa quickly accepted his offer, and the young boy promised her he would take very good care of her bag. While they walked along the hallway, Teresa thought Caprio was not just cute, but also kind in his actions. She then called out a warning that his bangs were long and he could trip while running, but he assured her he could see fine and told her not to be concerned. Once they finally got to the room, Caprio announced to her that they were there. Teresa saw that the room was much larger than she had been expecting it to be. It did not look anything like a room for a child, and she also observed that its windows were sealed and would not open. She worriedly wondered if their plan was to keep him locked inside this room until he was fully grown. She noticed the bed sheets seemed new, so she asked if they were changed frequently, and he told her they were not. He added that nobody ever visits this place, which was a surprise to her. Teresa was confused, since the room was perfectly clean, like it was just cleaned. She then asked where he sleeps, and he answered that he does not sleep on the bed. Then he pointed toward a specific spot on the hard floor. Teresa was very shocked and asked why he would sleep on the floor when there was a bed like this, warning him that he would become cold that way. Caprio simply answered that the bed was much too large for him. Teresa understood after a moment he was not talking about its cost, but that the bed's very large size frightened him. Because of that, Teresa made a decision and quietly informed him that starting today, he would be sleeping with her. Caprio was very surprised at her suggestion and asked her the reason she was being so nice to him. Teresa became flustered while trying to explain that they were now family, and that all family members should take care of one another. And she also mentioned that someday in the future, he would help her as well. Then, she gave a warm smile and said that his place next to her would always be available from this day forward. She told him to hurry up and get into the bed while his face became red from being embarrassed. This happened after they had prepared the bed together. Teresa questioned him if it was not scary anymore, with both of them there together, and he answered that it was not. Then Caprio asked what her name was, and Teresa thought he was very cute and understood she had not told him her name. They were sitting on the bed when she said her name was Teresa Marielle, and requested that he call her by that name. While they were lying down together, he called her Lady Teresa, and she gave him a soft reply. She looked at him, saying she was excited to spend her time with him, because she decided raising Caprio correctly was her new goal. She was very determined that Caprio would not become crazy, and that she would not die in her second life, and she promised to provide him a wonderful future. The following morning, Caprio awoke to the noise of Teresa making an effort to wake him from his sleep. On his second morning, inside the large house of the Duke, she was having a difficult time trying to reach the food basket that was sitting on a very high shelf. She angrily wondered why a palace such as this had no cook, and why their food was kept in such a high location. She knew Caprio, who was her height, could not reach it either. As a person from modern Korea, she thought it was unacceptable to imprison a child without giving him good meals, while Caprio was nervously telling her to be careful. Teresa sighed deeply, wondering what the two of them would do for food if they could not eat that day. Teresa suddenly saw a very long stick nearby, and an idea quickly came to her mind. She told Caprio her plan to use the stick for knocking down the food basket, and then she asked him to catch it. She handed him a piece of fabric to use for padding, and told him to be careful of his head. The plan was successful, and Teresa knocked down the big basket, which held apples, potatoes, and carrots, and Caprio was able to catch it successfully. After she looked at the ingredients, Teresa said they could prepare a soup if they had some meat, and she promised Caprio she would cook it for him. However, in the kitchen, Teresa had another problem to deal with, as the knife was much too big for her. Caprio saw that she was struggling, and made an offer to try using the knife himself. Teresa asked with surprise if he had cooked at any time in the past, to which he answered that he had not, but he also said that he believed he could probably do a better job than she could. Teresa knew with a sigh he already saw how bad she was at cooking. She recalled that being in the kitchen was always a complete disaster, even in her past life. She hesitantly agreed to let him try it, but she gave him a warning to not cut himself. She was very surprised at his skill while he was peeling the potatoes. His work was significantly better than her own. Thanks to Caprio's assistance, they finished the preparation work quickly. As he worked, Teresa asked what he ate before she arrived, and Caprio got flustered by her question. Teresa quickly explained that she did not mean to ask about his private business, and that she was only curious. Caprio would not tell her his answer, saying he was scared that she would think it was a disgusting thing. Teresa made the choice not to ask him about it anymore. She changed the subject and asked if he would eat what they made, and he told her with a nervous voice that he was excited for it. When Teresa took a taste of the soup, she thought it was very bland and had no seasoning. She made a comment that, at the very least, it would not give them a stomachache. But Caprio shocked her when he said it was delicious. Teresa wondered what he was eating before to think this soup was so good. Caprio shyly explained the food tasted delicious since he was eating the meal with her, which made Teresa feel very happy. As they were eating their meal, Caprio saw that Teresa was staring intently at him, so he asked if there was something about his face that was bothering her. But she answered with innocence that she looked at him because he was very beautiful, and her words surprised him. Teresa said to Caprio that he was truly lovable, and gently patted his head, then encouraged him to eat plenty of food so he could grow and be taller than she was. Caprio was surprised, asking if he truly needed to be taller than she was, and admitted he would rather have her be the one who was taller. Teresa smiled and proposed that both of them should try their best to grow up and become taller together, and Caprio happily accepted. Later on, Teresa made a list of all the items inside the remote palace where the two of them lived. She saw some heavy dresses that were covered with large jewels, and she wondered how she could possibly wear them without any assistance from maids. And she discovered as well that the pen for writing was far too large for her to use. Just to be certain, she went and checked the study's windows and saw they were also locked from the outside. This caused her to think this fancy place was really just a prison, and she knew sunlight was extremely important for the growth of children. All of a sudden, she heard the distinct sound of a bell ringing nearby, and Caprio said with fear that people were on their way, and the bell's ringing meant that someone had just arrived. Caprio was insistent that he needed to hide, but Teresa calmed him down and persuaded him that they should go together. She took his hand in hers and encouraged him to keep going forward. After that, the two of them hid together. They could hear two maids who were complaining about needing to clean in a location that really scared them, and one of the maids made a suggestion to steal a few jewels from the new dresses the Duchess had sent over. They were thinking that nobody would even care about the little monster. Teresa was very angered by what they said, but she viewed their arrival as a good opportunity for her and Caprio. Teresa suggested to Caprio that they should take a quick look outside, even though he was feeling hesitant about it. This was because he had been told not to go outside thousands of different times. She calmed him by saying she would remain with him and that nothing bad would happen to him. She took his hand once more and strongly encouraged him to place his trust in her. After that, the two of them set out together. Teresa checked to be certain that the main gate was left open, and she also checked that the maid's pathway was clear. She saw that there was a carriage and a new driver waiting outside. Once she was sure that the way was clear, she encouraged Caprio to go outside. The moment they walked out the door, a young man in uniform, the coachman, stopped them and commanded them to return inside right away. Teresa could tell from his very stern and serious appearance and his new uniform that he was certainly a brand new guard. So she walked up to him and handed him a list, explaining she needed these items, and he could request them from the maids who just went inside the palace. Teresa informed the guard the maids were hurrying because they were planning to steal the valuable jewels from her new dress. The guard was doubtful, saying the Duchess had selected them with care, but Teresa acted shocked and asked if he was calling her a liar. The guard got flustered and asked her to wait while he confirmed it, so Teresa agreed, and the guard requested they not go too far away while they were waiting for him to return. Teresa observed the beautiful palace, thinking it was ironic that this place was named the Serpent's Den. She recalled from the original novel that Caprio had been born with snake scales covering his face and a magical symbol on his back. After some investigation, his father, the Duke, found that the symbol was actually a complicated, magical sealing spell. This was strange, because it is not possible to cast a magic spell on a child who is not yet born. Rumors began to spread that Caprio was a disgusting serpent in a human body, a monster sealed by a god before he was born. The Duke and Duchess were completely convinced this rumor was true, so they locked their son away in this palace on his 9th birthday. Teresa looked over at Caprio, wondering how long he was locked away, and if this was the very first time he had been outside since then. She told him that he should look around at everything as much as he wanted to. However, he simply answered her that he had already seen enough of the outside. He mentioned that the flowers were very beautiful, and that the sky was perfectly clear, but he said she was much more beautiful than all of those things combined. He also added that the color of her hair reminded him of the color of the sky at dawn. Teresa was very surprised by this unexpected compliment from him, and she thanked him for it, but she encouraged him to enjoy the view outside, instead of just looking at her, particularly since so much time had passed since he was last out. Their quiet conversation was suddenly interrupted by the loud sound of one of the maids screaming. As she was being dragged in their direction, she was screaming that she was completely innocent. The guard came back and told Teresa the missing jewels were found in the two maids' belongings and confirmed they were the jewels from her dress. He also said he would tell the Duchess about this to have them punished, while the other maid begged Teresa to please save her. Teresa quietly thought to herself that the maid was actually a very brilliant and skilled actress. And even though she made a mistake by touching her dress, the punishment could be too harsh considering the treatment she gets in the duchy. Then she saw that there was a strange design embroidered on the maid's work uniform. She realized it was the crest of the temple, and she wondered why people from the temple were working as servants at the Duke's palace. The guard said he was sorry for the trouble and then requested that they go back inside the palace. On their way back to the palace, Teresa asked Caprio about the maids, and he said that everyone who is from the temple behaves this way. And he said that they intentionally cause problems in order to make his mother suffer. At that time, Teresa recalled that Caprio's imprisonment in the novel was not just due to his parents, but the pressure from the temple also had a very large role in it. Teresa wondered if Caprio's future revenge on his parents and the temple was because of this bad treatment, but she saw that for now, he had no grudge against his mother. She recalled with some regret the original novel was never finished, so she did not know the final ending, but she was certain that Caprio's fate was not a happy one. In a big contrast, her sister at the temple must have found great success. Doubt entered her heart, and she wondered if she was on the wrong path, and that the best thing was not to interfere in Teresa's life from the start. Her deep thoughts were suddenly interrupted by the sound of Caprio's voice. He asked her with a concerned tone if he had made a big mistake by saying what he did about the maids. Teresa quickly reassured him and gently patted his head, telling him he could say anything to her because of their special relationship. She found her determination again, and decided the only thing she could do at this time was to raise Caprio in the best manner she could. She was hoping that he would grow up to be a better person, even if it was only a small improvement. Later on, during that same night, Teresa looked at the jewels she got back from the maids and thought this saved her from the trouble of taking them off herself. Her main goal was to escape from that cursed palace. She had the diamonds the maids stole, and also a mana stone she snuck from a kitchen lamp, and she believed that all of this would be enough to shatter the window. She recalled from the novel there were two kinds of mana stones, red ones from magical beasts, and blue ones, which were artificial stones created by wizards. She knew blue mana stones were vulnerable to diamonds, and would make a small explosion when they were shattered. Her plan was using this explosion to shatter the window and get to the balcony, and from that spot she could use a rope to escape, just as she had seen from outside. She did not plan to escape right away, but wanted to make sure she had an escape route first, and then wait for the perfect chance. Fortunately for her, the maids did not often enter Caprio's room. She put on a pair of gloves and got ready to execute her plan, as she was determined she could not raise Caprio in a place like this one. This happened when she hit the mana stone with the diamond. While Caprio slept, painful memories came to him. He heard someone's voice telling him that the world outside was a very dangerous place for him, and the voice of his mother, who was promising to find some kind of solution. Then he heard his parents telling him he was only an obstacle in both of their lives, and they considered him to be an uncontrollable disaster. It was now stuck in his mind that he was the real danger, not the world itself. And for that reason, he needed to stay completely isolated. He also recalled how he would always try to make himself believe that he was perfectly fine. The noise from the explosion woke Caprio from his sleep, and he woke up feeling very startled. He found Teresa standing next to the broken window. She turned around and asked him if he was awake. Then she apologized, and Caprio noticed her injured hand. Teresa explained that she had been trying not to wake him up. Caprio looked down at her hand with great concern and then asked her what she was doing. Teresa very proudly informed Caprio that she had successfully broken the locked window, so that he would be able to enjoy the cool breeze and the warm sunshine. She happily asked him if he was happy now, but he climbed out of bed, walked to her, and said that he was not happy. Teresa was very confused and asked him why, and Caprio took her hurt hand and sadly said that she was injured. Teresa tried to make it seem less serious, telling him she was okay and the injury did not hurt very much. But Caprio requested that she please let him see her hand. This happened after she removed her glove. Caprio held onto her hand, and a strange, mysterious golden light started to come out from him. Teresa watched as her wound healed entirely in just a few moments. But at the same time, she saw that scales were starting to spread across Caprio's body while he was in pain. She yelled at him to stop what he was doing, but he kept healing her. Teresa stood there stunned, because she had just found out Caprio had a healing power that was not mentioned in the original novel. She asked him about this incredible power, and he answered that he had no idea how he was able to do it. Teresa knew that healing powers were very rare and hard to use even with magic, which was why her saint sister was so respected. She said she was sorry his power did not heal his own hand too, but he reassured her that it did not hurt him. She very carefully asked him the reason why he was injured. He answered that he was injured simply because he was a monster. Teresa quickly rejected this idea. She pointed out that he'd get along with her just fine. He answered that was the reason she was such a mystery to him. And then he hesitantly asked her if the reason she got along with him was because she was also a monster like he was. Teresa found it was very hard to say no to his innocent question, so she hesitantly agreed this could be the reason. Caprio was very happy, saying that he knew it was the truth. Teresa was very surprised to see his happiness, but she made the choice to play along with it. Right after that happened, Caprio suddenly felt tired and made the decision to go back to his sleep, and Teresa then wished him a very good and restful night of sleep. Once Caprio had fallen asleep, Teresa had a feeling that there was something very strange going on. Caprio's healing power, which was not in the novel, and his attitude that showed no grudge against the Duchess, were things not in the story. She started to wonder if there was some other secret story that she did not know anything about. The following day, Teresa was very surprised by a personal visit from the Duchess herself. The Duchess told her she had heard about what happened and would personally supervise her now. Teresa never expected the Duchess to bring the requested items herself. Then, the Duchess commanded one of the maids to dispose of all the dresses that she had sent to her before. The Duchess presented Teresa with a brand new dress and asked if she was able to wear it by herself. Teresa was surprised, wondering if the Duchess was truly worried for her, but she answered that the dress would look very nice and thanked her. At that exact moment, Caprio started running toward his mother, calling out her name, but he tripped on something and fell down. The Duchess instinctively screamed out his name and reached her hand toward him with great concern. Teresa hurried to check on Caprio, who told her he was all right, while the Duchess observed them very closely. The Duchess's reaction confirmed her suspicions that there was a secret she did not know about. All of a sudden, the Duchess made an announcement that she was about to leave. But Teresa stopped her quickly, calling her mother and offering to make some tea so she could rest for a while. The Duchess was surprised to be called that, but before she replied, one of her maids interrupted and reminded the Duchess it was not a good idea for her to remain here long. Teresa saw that this maid, just like the previous ones, was from the temple, and she wondered about their relationship. The Duchess told the maid to be silent, and the maid reminded her she was here due to a very slim chance. So the Duchess then ignored the maid and ordered her to bring tea. When Teresa served the tea, the Duchess said it tasted awful. Teresa said Caprio made it. The Duchess noted that things that are good for your body are frequently bitter. Teresa realized the current Duchess was totally different from the picture she had of her based on reading the novel. In the book, she was only a minor villain who really hated her sad and gloomy son. But in reality, she appeared to be a person who was unable to express her true feelings in an honest way. The maid interrupted them again, reminding the Duchess they were late and asking if she was okay with the negative effect of this visit on Caprio. Teresa noticed the temple maids seemed very desperate in their efforts to keep the Duchess far away from her young son. The Duchess chose to leave, but before she left, she gave Teresa a warning that if she wanted to survive, she must be careful and watchful. This was because there was nobody here who was on her side. Teresa answered in a cheerful voice, assuring her that she would follow her good advice. After the Duchess had departed, Caprio shyly said to Teresa that he would always be on her side, and she thanked him. Teresa asked if he enjoyed seeing the Duchess, as he seemed happy, and added she heard from him the Duchess would visit them every day after that. To her question, he replied with a yes, and then he very quickly added that he also liked her. Teresa thought he believed she was jealous and found him adorable. Teresa decided to watch things closely the next day to learn more secrets. But the following day, a maid from the temple arrived and informed them the Duchess was not going to be able to come visit. The maid then announced they were performing a purification ceremony that day and told them to be calm, which to Teresa sounded like a threat instead of a blessing. When Teresa questioned the maid about why they were doing the purification ritual, Caprio answered with hesitation that it was because every place where he had stayed was now contaminated, and they told him the places needed to be purified from time to time, or his own parents would be in great danger. The maid used his words against him, and added if the young master was truly worried for the Duchess, he needed to obey. Teresa cut off the maid's speech by asking what she thought she was doing, and she slapped the maid's hand away from Caprio. The maid sarcastically answered, accusing her of acting like the lady of the duchy, and asked if being the saint's sister was not enough for her. Teresa angrily replied, the maid was the one who was acting arrogant, only because she had the temple's support. The maid was furious at her response, but Teresa commanded her to be quiet, reminding her it was wrong for a person with no holy power to talk like that. Teresa's tone of voice affected the maid so greatly that she appeared to be confused and was unable to give an answer. Teresa thought being the saint's sister really made her special. In the original book, the character Teresa had a negative reaction to holy power, except for her sister's power. And because she did not feel any power coming from the maid, she came to the conclusion that she had no real power. The situation started to become much clearer in her mind. She understood that the temple was just using Caprio as an excuse so it could control the Duke's family however it wanted. She recalled that the temple had been the very first to call Caprio a monster in the original book. However, the book mentioned nothing about them sending people to create problems between Caprio and the Duchess, making her feel the story she knew had lied to her. As the two of them were walking away, Teresa told Caprio that she really did not like the people from the temple, and he completely agreed with her. Caprio said his parents had told him it was fine for him to be born a monster, and promised to always stay by his side. But he nodded his head in agreement when Teresa asked if they changed their behavior after the people from the temple had arrived. Teresa decided that in order for Caprio to grow up in a good way, he needed to leave this palace. But she knew a secret escape would be useless, as the temple could catch 2 children, and she had no proof against the temple. She wondered if her in-laws wanted to live with Caprio. She asked Caprio if he had a desire to leave the palace, and he answered with some hesitation that he did. Hearing that, she enthusiastically proposed that they leave the palace together, and when he asked how, she suggested playing with fire with him. Her plan was this: after being sure the palace was empty and making sure their escape routes were safe, a fire with an unknown cause would start in the first-floor kitchen, while the two of them were asleep. After that, they would be woken up by the smoke and the fire's flames, and they would escape in a big hurry from their room's window on the 2nd floor. The entire plan appeared to be completely perfect in her eyes, but the main problem was, they would need to jump from the 2nd floor to finish their escape plan. Caprio looked at her with some concern, and Teresa wondered if they could actually do it, knowing a bad fall could cause a broken bone. When Teresa asked Caprio if he was feeling ready, he hesitantly answered her that he was. He then said he had done what she asked, setting up the mana stone and diamond to hit each other when the rope was pulled to start the fire, and she praised his good work. Teresa asked him to hand her the rope and to step away from it because it was dangerous. Then she pulled on the rope very hard, which caused a loud explosion. Soon after, flames and a lot of smoke started to rise up from the palace. Teresa informed Caprio that she was going to be the one to go down first. She promised him she would hold a blanket to catch him when he came down, and asked him to be careful. She began to go down using the rope, but she thought to herself the 2nd floor was a lot higher than she originally expected. All of a sudden, her hand slipped from the rope and she fell while screaming. But somehow she landed very lightly on her own 2 feet. For just a moment, she felt like her body was floating, and she wondered what in the world had happened. She turned to call out for Caprio, but was shocked to see he had already landed skillfully next to her, and she wondered how he did it. And she thought with amazement if psychopathic villains were strange from a young age, remembering her own sister was also like that. Luckily for them, it started to rain. As they stood there and watched the palace burn down almost completely, Teresa worriedly wondered if she would get divorced if they were caught, because she destroyed a palace that belonged to the Duke's family. Fear could be seen on Caprio's face because he thought that there was no possible way to avoid the consequences. Suddenly, they heard the Duchess's voice as she ran toward them through the rain, screaming out Caprio's name. One of the maids made an attempt to stop her, but the Duchess pushed her aside and insisted on going forward herself. Caprio ran in the direction of his mother, while Teresa reassured him and encouraged him to go over to her. As Teresa was standing all by herself in the rain, a man appeared suddenly and covered her with an umbrella, asking if she had gotten hurt anywhere on her body. She answered that she was not hurt, but she noticed the particular scent that was coming from him. Then she got a good look at his right arm and understood that this man was actually Caprio's father. She recalled that his name was Minoric, and he was Caprio's biological father, and she remembered he was the youngest sword master and the actual ruler of the place called the Buried Dark City. Despite his skills, he was not a major character in the original story since he lost his right arm. Otherwise, his skills would have been greater than the main characters. And as she was thinking about how he lost his arm, the Duke asked her to hold the umbrella because his own arm was not able to do it. And while she thought that Caprio's mother was very different from the novel and wondered about his father's condition, he suddenly lifted her up into his arms. She apologized to him with embarrassment because she had accidentally hit him with the umbrella, but he said it was fine, and, thanks to her, he was now wide awake. Teresa thought to herself with great surprise that the Duke did not appear to be angry at all. At the same time, Caprio was moving away, saying he should not get close because they told him his presence would hurt them, and that it was all his fault. Teresa requested that the Duke put her down on the ground, which he then did. Caprio ran over to her in a big hurry so he could take shelter with her from the falling rain, and she gave him a warning that he would get very cold if he stayed like this. Caprio answered that he was fine, but she said to him that he did not need to say that to her, and she offered her own broad shoulders for him to lean on for support. Caprio asked in surprise where her broad shoulders were. She told him to pretend they were there and rest his head on them, and he agreed to do it, feeling very shy. This scene was interrupted by the Duke's voice as he called for his wife, the Duchess, to come back. Teresa called out to her in surprise, "Mother," but the Duchess answered by asking her not to call her that name. Teresa asked her if she was not going to ask how the fire had started and how they were able to escape from it, but the Duchess answered coldly they could hear about it later, and told Teresa not to act like her equal, just because she bought her from the Count. After that, she commanded her to stop standing there and get inside the waiting carriage. Once inside the carriage, Teresa asked the Duke about Caprio's mother. The Duke explained she would arrive later in another carriage since they were told Caprio's condition would get worse if his mother came close to him. The Duke said that this could possibly be a lie, because the temple had always looked down upon the Duke's family. But he still had to wonder if they were telling the truth this time. He also added that it is a very difficult thing to take a gamble with your own child's life, while also saying this did not make them good parents. Teresa was not able to understand the Duke's very complicated character. She realized that none of the people were just simple characters from a novel any longer. As they were getting closer to their final destination, Teresa stared out of the carriage window with amazement, and the Duke saw her excitement and told the driver of the carriage to slow down. When they arrived, the Duke made an announcement that they would be leaving the capital city as soon as they could. He then told Teresa that the second they took Caprio from the palace, they had officially broken their agreement with the temple. The Duke explained the contract said the temple would help cure Caprio, but in return, Caprio would be isolated, and he and the Duchess could not leave the capital where the temple could watch them. He noted that there were other conditions, like sending an offering to check if Caprio was really a monster. Teresa understood that she was the offering the contract mentioned, as the original novel said they sent a toy to entertain Caprio. She felt completely betrayed by the novel she had paid to read, and she wondered why the Duke was telling her all of this information. When Teresa asked him why he was telling her all this, the Duke gave unclear answers, sometimes saying he was sorry, or that he was happy, or that he was grateful, which made her wonder what he was thinking. The Duke said it was true she would not understand it all anyway, and Teresa sarcastically agreed in her head, thinking it was because she looked like a 10-year-old child. She asked if they would go to the duchy after leaving the capital, and if she could go, and he replied yes, adding that she could go if she wanted to. The Duke offered his hand to help Caprio get out of the carriage, but Caprio chose to avoid his touch and got out on his own. When they arrived, a maid called to Caprio to come closer so she could dry his clothes, and Teresa wondered if the Duke and Caprio were not on good terms, as she was starting to doubt it. At that time, the Duchess arrived and commanded a maid named Mira to take Teresa to go and wash up. The Duke was speaking with his wife, saying this was the best decision, and that the Pope would not have sent that same test to them regardless. Teresa thought to herself that her sister's personality would not let her go quietly, just because the Pope was the one who sent for her. She recalled from the original novel her sister would never use her holy power if she was not willing to do so, to the point that the Pope and the Crown Prince needed to persuade her in person. As Mira was leading her away, Teresa thought she did not know if her sister's power would even see Caprio's scales as a disease in the first place. She recalled the novel had stated that the adult version of Caprio did not have any scales. She wondered how he removed them, if not with her sister's power, hoping they had not just vanished naturally as he grew up. In the bathroom mirror, she noticed how thin Teresa was and said that she must have been feeling very cold. Mira apologized for not being able to care for her, explaining the non-temple maids were forbidden from entering that palace, which surprised Teresa. Teresa understood that Mira was truly worried about her, and that she had to know that she had been sold to the family. Teresa considered her tough situation. She was the saint's sister who would not heal Caprio, and she could also be accused of starting the fire. She wondered in a panic why there were so many accusations against her. Mira interrupted her thoughts, wiped away her tears, and thanked her for staying by the young master's side despite her fear. And she made a promise to her that she would stay by her side from this moment on. And she also encouraged her to eat a lot of food so she could get her health back. Teresa felt very strange about this kind of treatment that she was not used to at all, since she was reincarnated in this body. Mira made a promise that she would bring her some nice warm cocoa after this. She had finished her bath. Teresa felt very touched by Mira's kind way of treating her. After she was dressed, Mira took her to Caprio's room and said she could sleep there tonight, and starting tomorrow she would get her own room. Then Mira left the room, saying that she would bring the hot cocoa to her soon. Teresa happily replied that Mira was like an angel, and Caprio showed his great happiness at finally being at his home. He said his mother told him he would not have to go back there, and then he asked her with innocence if she could do anything. Teresa decided that she would protect his innocence and answered that she could, in fact, do anything. Teresa was surprised to hear Caprio share his admiration for her skill in starting a fire so they could come home. At that time, she started to wonder why nobody had asked about the fire that had started in the palace, as it seemed extremely strange. Teresa kept wondering why they were not asked about it, and if they would let it go, and if she was innocent to them. Caprio interrupted her thoughts. So she said to him it might be too early to judge the situation since she just arrived, and she encouraged him to go to sleep. Caprio said no because he did not feel tired at all, but Teresa was extremely tired. She made the decision to tell him a story that would help him sleep, and Caprio agreed with a lot of enthusiasm. She started to tell him a story about a worker aunt, which was really the story of her own previous life. In that life, she worked long hours for no money and was tricked, and she still felt a grudge because of what happened. He was very moved by the story and said he hoped that the worker ant would be happy in her next life. His words deeply touched Teresa as she recalled her life before she had become Teresa. And for a brief moment, she felt as if she had forgotten her own name from that life. The following morning, she awoke feeling very heavy and her skin felt quite itchy. Caprio was awake already, and he called out to her, and he asked her if she had a good sleep, reminding her she had fallen asleep while she was telling the story. Caprio said that the story was extremely interesting, but Teresa did not really think so. Then he informed her that his mother, the Duchess, had sent for her. Teresa wondered if the Duchess would at last ask about the palace fire, and she asked Caprio where she was, and he said she was downstairs. Teresa had not been feeling well ever since she first woke up, and she asked Caprio if he could help her get up. After Mira assisted her with changing her clothes, Teresa went downstairs and found the Duchess, who was surrounded by many priests from the temple. She knew right away the reason she felt so sick was because of all of the holy energy that was in one place. She heard one of the priests ask the Duchess with regret if she truly planned to go against the will of the temple, and he commanded her to take all of the temple maids with her and to send Caprio away from the capital before the day ended. The Duchess answered him in a cold voice and asked if that was everything that he wanted to say. The priest called her arrogant, asking if she wasn't sorry for the empire's people who would be sacrificed for the young master, adding that as an outsider, she wouldn't understand. The Duchess answered that she might not know anything, but she had a strong belief that the god of the empire was a merciful one. This was shown by the fact that he allowed them to speak so freely without giving them any kind of punishment. Then she told them to return quickly if they had time to waste talking, reminding them they were the ones who set the one-day deadline. After the priests, who had been defeated, left, Teresa and Caprio both walked toward the Duchess. Teresa called to the Duchess, saying she had summoned her, and she replied yes. Meanwhile, Teresa thought to herself that she was not quite well. The Duchess informed Teresa they would leave the capital when preparations were done, and since she may never come back, she should do whatever she wanted now. Teresa thought to herself that she did not really have anything special that she wanted to do, but she did ask for permission to take a walk around the beautiful garden. The Duchess remarked she was saying odd things, explaining that nobody walks around without permission from their own home. After a brief moment of being confused, Teresa understood the secret meaning, and she agreed to go. Teresa understood the Duchess was cleverly showing she was now part of the Duke's family, and she felt the novel had totally deceived her about the Duchess's true character. Outside, Caprio was occupied, and he was trying to remember the faces of the temple priests who had just recently left. He told her that he was going to punish them for what they did, and then he quietly added that he really wanted to kill them, which greatly shocked Teresa. She hurried to stop him, thinking that she was why he escaped the snake pit, and she felt it was not right for him to follow the villain's path. She stressed that this was not permitted, and that killing a priest would create a very big problem. But Caprio explained that he heard them wish for his mother to die. Teresa grew angry and wondered how someone could curse parents in front of their own child. For a brief moment, she thought that it could be acceptable as long as Caprio was not caught doing it. But she quickly took back her thought and said he still had a long way to grow, and they should think about this later on. She quickly changed the topic of their conversation and asked him to show her the garden. Caprio asked her if it was all right for her not to visit her own family. Teresa thought to herself that she could not tell him that her own parents had sold her away, So she answered that she would rather stay with him instead, which made him feel happy, and he agreed to be her guide. As they were taking a walk, Teresa noticed that all of the priests had now disappeared, and suddenly she felt extremely dizzy and nearly fell down. After Caprio caught her, she asked him not to call anyone, telling him she was fine. She wondered if she had caught a cold, and she was afraid she might have a serious sickness that would stop her in-laws from taking her with them. And as she was thinking that she should not go back to her family, the Count's family, she then lost her consciousness, and Caprio screamed with fear and a great deal of worry for her. Teresa awoke to find that she was in a bed with the Duchess sitting right beside her. She recalled she was going to the garden with Caprio after the priests left, and then she suddenly collapsed. She asked about Caprio, and the Duchess said she had sent him to his own room because he was extremely scared. This happened as she was wondering about the reason she had fainted. She saw the concern on the Duchess's face and was afraid she had a fatal illness that would stop her from going with them to the duchy. As she was thinking about what she should do, the Duchess surprised her by giving her an apology. The Duchess explained she was so confused that she had forgotten for a moment that other children were different from Caprio, and she reassured her there was no need for excuses as she was now in her care. The Duchess also added that it appears they will need a proper governess for the children, like Viscountess Rose. Teresa wondered, feeling moved, if the Duchess would truly accept her. She felt odd hearing the apology, as she thought she would be lucky not to be kicked out, especially since she was just sold to the Duke's family. The Duchess introduced Teresa to Elena, who was the family's personal doctor, who had looked at her while she was unconscious. After Elena had greeted her, Teresa asked her with concern if there was anything that was wrong with her body. Elena replied seriously that the problem was extremely grave, and that she could die in a year if she kept on like this, which shocked Teresa. Teresa then understood that her physical condition was this bad. She recalled that in the original story, the character of Teresa was still alive at 17, even though she never appeared to be happy, and she had to wonder how she was able to survive for all of that time. The Duchess wondered if Teresa would have the strength to endure the long journey to the duchy with her current condition. She was fearing that she was going to be abandoned. Teresa shouted out that she could definitely endure it. The Duchess told her to wait because she was still thinking, and then she decided to give her a total of 3 days. The Duchess told Elena that the Duke would be able to buy them some time, and commanded her to be responsible for Teresa's recovery until Viscountess Rose arrives. Elena protested this, saying that she would need to eat 5 meals every day for at least 1 month to get to a normal weight, and she added the temple would certainly increase its pressure on them, so she was not sure Viscountess Rose could return. But Elena happily announced the Duchess would take care of these issues, and she would focus only on the young lady. Teresa was very surprised the Duchess was changing the schedule just for her, despite all of the temple's very strict warnings. She made an attempt to refuse this, saying she was only a guest and could not be such a burden to them. But the Duchess completely ignored her and then invited her to come and have dinner together with them. Elena excused herself to go and inform Caprio about Teresa's condition because she had made a promise to him. She added that she was also going to ask him about the different kinds of foods that Teresa liked to eat. This made Teresa feel both completely ignored and also cared for at the very same time. Suddenly, the Duchess picked her up in her arms, saying this reminded her of Caprio when he was 6, and weighed about the same amount as her. Teresa tried to say that she could walk by herself just fine, but she was completely ignored once again. When they finally reached the dining hall, Caprio ran toward them, shouting out Teresa's name, and he was demanding that she promise not to go to heaven. Teresa wondered with a lot of confusion what they could have possibly told him about her condition. Elena explained that it seemed Caprio had somehow overheard their conversation from before. Teresa thought this was impossible because his bedroom was located on the upper floor of the house. At the dinner table, Teresa felt very overwhelmed by the huge quantity of food, while everyone else encouraged her to eat. She also noticed that the Duchess did not show any sign of wanting to stop them. When Teresa finally tasted the food, she thought it was surprisingly very delicious. While Elena and Caprio continued to put more and more meat onto her plate, she soon felt very full and said she could not eat anymore. So Elena reassured her that she had done a good job, and she told her they would slowly make her meals larger because she needed to recover her health very quickly. After her meal, Elena gave her medicine, a fever reducer and a digestive aid, and told her to get ready to take much more medicine from now on. Caprio sadly added there would be no delicious food for her in heaven, so she should not go there. Teresa promised them she would try her best, but she felt she was treated like a very sick patient, when all she needed was to eat and sleep well. Later, Teresa asked to go to the garden as she planned before, and Caprio and the Duchess went with her, with the Duchess saying it was time for their long-awaited tea. The garden. Teresa told Caprio that she believed his mother was a very good person after all, even though she had been observing them from a distance the entire time, and despite being the busy lady of the duchy, she admitted her first impression of her was bad, but now she wondered if she said those harsh words, because the temple maids were behind her then. Caprio shyly said he loved his mother too, then quickly added that he loved her too, which made Teresa tell him she was not jealous. She then asked Caprio if he also loved the Duke as well, but he changed the subject. Caprio said he had good hearing, and that was how he heard his mother and Elena's conversation about her poor health. He sadly admitted that he had tried to use his own healing ability on her just like he had done before, but it had no effect. And when he shared his wish to be helpful to her, Teresa quickly assured him he was already helping her a very great deal. And she also reminded him that he had covered her up with a blanket a little bit earlier. Caprio became flustered and offered to cover her with more blankets, so she asked him to get under the blanket with her. He answered that he was truly fine, and that all he cared about was her not being sick. That was enough for him. Teresa felt very touched by his extreme and selfless kindness, and she made a promise to him that she would get better very soon. The next day, Teresa awoke to discover that Caprio had already left the room, and the maid, Mira, had prepared a giant tray that was full of dishes for her, and was asking her to eat all the food before she got up. And she had prepared that specific table after she had guessed what she liked. Mira reminded her that she needed to take her medicine after she ate, and Teresa felt horrified by the sheer amount of food. She said she could not think about eating and would eat later, but Mira insisted that she could not skip any of her meals. She offered to let her eat just a little bit, but then she gave her a very large plate of food. Mira started to feed her the food, one bite at a time, encouraging her to keep going. When she finally got to the very last piece, Teresa felt she could not eat even one more bite. So she apologized to Mira and then ran out of the room, shouting her name the wrong way. When Teresa was running away, she bumped right into the Duke. He caught her, and then he asked her if she was hurt. The maid, Mira, caught up to them, reminding Teresa that she needed to eat a lot more. The Duke understood what was happening and said he would take care of Teresa from here, which allowed her to leave. As he was carrying her away, Teresa apologized to Mira one more time, but she said her name wrong. The Duke said not to force herself to eat if she did not want to, but Teresa felt guilty since Mira was worried about her. The Duke said Mira would worry more if she ate too much and made herself sick, which Teresa thought was logical. The Duke then carried her into a very luxurious-looking room. Teresa soon realized this was the private office of the Duchess. When she called the room Mom's office, the Duke stopped walking suddenly, which made her wonder if she had said something odd. The Duke asked her why she called the Duchess Mom, but called him by his formal title, Your Highness. Teresa became very flustered and confused. She tried to correct what she said, but he explained he did not mean the formal title, but an informal word, starting with A. After thinking for a moment, she guessed that he meant the Korean word, ajushi, which can mean Mr. or Uncle. Then she tried to call him Sir, but his dark facial expression showed her that this was also not right. The Duke then explained to her that he was 3 years younger than the Duchess was. Teresa saw Caprio, who was sitting in the garden, through the office window. In order to change the subject, Teresa asked if she could go and see Caprio. The Duke asked if she was not scared of Caprio, and she said no, wondering why she would be afraid of him. The Duke placed her down on the floor and gave her permission to go, and she thanked him for it. As she was walking away from him, she wondered what he was trying to say to her earlier, and she guessed that maybe he wanted her to call him Dad. She decided she would observe the situation and try to call him that at a later time. She went to go and look for Caprio in the location where she thought that he might be, and she heard him talking to somebody, saying that he needed to leave now and would not be able to visit for a while. He praised the unseen creature for shedding its skin and informed it that he did not need to bring it food anymore. Teresa linked this conversation to Caprio's mysterious history concerning the kind of food he consumed before her arrival. Caprio sensed that she was there, and Teresa recalled that his hearing was excellent. She asked if he was with another person, and he said yes, but they departed quickly since they were extremely shy. Teresa determined he was speaking to an animal instead of a person, and when Caprio asked if it was odd, she assured him it was not strange whatsoever. Teresa asked Caprio if he felt concerned about leaving his animal friends, and he told her it was fine, since many companions were also in the duchy's gardens and forests. However, he added with sadness that he was no longer permitted to roam in the forest because other people were very scared of him. He then corrected himself while smiling, saying it was fine now, since he had his mother and her with him. Teresa told him to let her know right away if he started feeling sick later. He then asked if he was allowed to go anywhere, and she confidently assured him that he could. After that, he timidly mentioned to her that he was interested in her home and her family. Teresa discovered that this was very difficult to answer, as she recalled her parents, who were only concerned with using their own children for gain. Her older sister also had a villainous role in the original novel. Her family was full of terrible people. She understood that her own family was her greatest vulnerability. They would also likely continue to cause her trouble even after she established a secure position for herself. She was unsure of the best way to explain all of these things to Caprio. He then asked her if it was not possible. Confused, she answered that she simply hated her family and did not have a good relationship with them. She chose to tell him the truth, saying she was sold to the Duke's family for not being a saint like her sister and not being useful enough. She was also wondering just how much information she ought to tell him. She chose to stop talking. Then, Caprio suddenly said he did not want to visit her family anymore. The maid, Mira, interrupted their discussion. Caprio made an offer to help her stand up. While he helped her, Teresa was shocked by the great strength he used to lift her up so easily. She was curious about where a small boy like him had gotten all of that power. Mira said she was sorry for making her eat food earlier. She explained that her only wish was for her to recover very quickly. Teresa explained that giving her a lot of food would not guarantee a quick recovery, so Mira apologized once more. Teresa felt very emotional and thought an angel was saying sorry to an arson suspect. She told Mira she did nothing wrong. She showed her appreciation for everything she had done to care for her, and pleaded with her not to talk like that. Mira appreciated her words and recommended they go back to the palace, because she had something that she wanted to show her. Mira guided Teresa to a grand and large bedroom, and Teresa was amazed by how beautiful it was. Mira asked if she liked the room, and she answered with a lot of excitement. She felt very joyful since it was not an attic, had no cleaning supplies or cobwebs, and most of all, it was free of rats and cockroaches. Mira thought to herself that having rats and cockroaches inside any bedroom was totally unacceptable. She wondered what sort of treatment the lovely young lady received from her family. Teresa broke into her thoughts, feeling she should not have mentioned those details to Mira, and tried to minimize it by saying the Count's home was not that bad. After that, Mira gave Teresa a gentle hug. She decided to do everything she could to protect her, telling her everything was fine now and that she had been very brave. Teresa was quite surprised by this action and felt a little strange. This was because everything she said was from the original Teresa's life, before her own reincarnation into the body. In spite of this, she discovered that she was crying. It was as if she was the original Teresa, and she expressed her thanks to Mira for being so kind. Later, while in her bed, she thought about the emotions that overwhelmed her before, where it seemed as if Teresa's past was her own. Her thoughts also felt like her own. She questioned if she was gradually combining with Teresa's original personality. She understood that she could not remember her own appearance before reincarnation, but she kept her memories of the original novel's plot. She ultimately decided to stop worrying about it and to concentrate on the situation that was in front of her. Teresa got out of bed and removed a single gold coin that she had stolen from the Count's home. She thought it would be a sufficient amount to purchase a small present. She was thankful for the good treatment she got from Caprio and her in-laws, and she hoped to repay their kindness with a small gesture. She believed that if she could use her reincarnation knowledge, she would have offered something more precious, like future investment tips or a warning about a rebellious family. However, she knew nobody would believe a child saying those things. Therefore, she chose to get something that was appropriate for a child of her age. Teresa ran to the Duchess, calling her mom, and the Duchess told her not to run so she would not fall. Teresa requested permission to go outside for just a little while. The Duchess questioned if it was a good idea for her to go out, considering her current health. Teresa told her that she felt completely well now that she had taken her medicine and slept. After thinking for a moment, the Duchess approved her request, but only if a knight went with her and she came back within 1 hour. Teresa was very happy and promised that she would be back soon. As she ran off, the Duchess once again reminded her not to run. Once she was ready to leave, she discovered a carriage and a knight were waiting for her outdoors. A knight approached her and informed her that he was assigned to go with her on her trip. While they were traveling in the carriage, Teresa looked over at him. She thought he was a very blunt and direct man, which was an impression she got from their first encounter. She attempted to recall his name, wondering if it might be Caesar. She saw that he did not appear to hold a high rank, and decided it was not logical for the Duke's family to give her an important knight for protection. The carriage was in motion. Teresa wondered what Caprio was doing at that moment. She also wished that he had been able to come with her. When she got to the shopping area, Teresa was astonished by the large number of people inside the shops. She suddenly understood that this was the exact same location the original Teresa had gone to in the past. Then, the memories from that specific day came flooding back into her mind. She noticed a bracelet and desired to have it very much. The saleswoman explained to her that the bracelet was actually one part of a matching pair. She said it would only provide good luck if she purchased both of them, which irritated Teresa because she felt she was being tricked with sales tactics as a child. The saleswoman broke into her thoughts, asking if she was not planning to purchase anything at all. So Teresa chose to buy the bracelet she could not have in the past, telling the saleswoman she would take them along with a few other items. She held the pretty bracelet in her hand and thought about how beautiful it was. Her memory returned to the past, when the original Teresa had desperately desired the bracelet but was too afraid to ask for it. This created a strange feeling, since the happiness really belonged to the original Teresa. It was not her own, and she wondered again if it was okay for her personality to combine with the body's original owner's personality like this. She went back and asked the old saleswoman if she was the one who made the bracelets, and she was told that her granddaughter made them. After she paid for everything, she noticed that the coin bag she still had was extremely heavy. The knight then came over and offered to carry it on her behalf, and she thanked him for helping her. Following that, she decided to buy a luxury gift for her in-laws and instructed the knight to go to a different part of the shopping area that sold more expensive items. When they got to the high-end street, Teresa saw the products displayed were much more beautiful, and the area was very busy with nobles. She was thinking about what would be the perfect gift to buy. She saw that other nobles knew the Duke's family symbol on the knight with her, and they started to wonder why they were there. Teresa understood they had quickly drawn attention since this street was a popular place for nobles. In particular, a cute teddy bear in a shop's window display captured her attention. She thought that it would be a completely perfect gift to give to Caprio. She went to the store to purchase the doll, but an employee quickly informed her the shop was closed. Teresa was shocked and mentioned that it was still the middle of the day, but the employee nervously repeated that they were closed. Teresa was curious about the specific reason for this poor treatment. She then saw that everyone nearby, including people walking past and shopkeepers, was actively avoiding them and moving away. She understood the harsh reality at that point. It appeared the Nectarine family was not welcome in this place. She was frustrated since she would not be able to purchase any presents if this continued. Therefore, she asked the knight for them to go back. Teresa ultimately departed from the shopping area without having been able to purchase anything at all. As Teresa headed back, she wondered about other things to buy, and then she saw a very crowded bakery. She chose to go inside and buy some snacks, thinking the bakery could not refuse her service since it was so busy. She felt the Duchess's desserts, while they tasted fine, were very healthy. They lacked enough sweetness and did not have much cream. A cute loaf of bread shaped like a bear caught her attention, and she thought it resembled Caprio. After purchasing the bread as his gift, she wondered about buying a present for her in-laws there too. She abandoned the idea after asking the knight what time it was. The knight informed her it was 1 o'clock in the afternoon, and Teresa worriedly realized her allowed time was almost over. She sighed with disappointment and made the decision that they needed to return right away. During the carriage ride back, she thought about the difficulty of buying gifts for other people. She was afraid that if she came back another time, the situation would not be different. Then she had a different idea. She questioned the purpose of purchasing a very expensive gift for them. Because to the Nectarine family, which was known for its incredible amount of wealth, any typical material present would appear simple. She decided giving a meaningful present would be a lot better. She turned to the knight, asking him with hesitation if he believed the Duke or Duchess would dislike a gift she made herself. After thinking for a moment, he answered that he believed that it would be perfectly fine. She felt very relieved to hear his answer. When she came back to the palace, she saw Caprio sitting and reading, and she called his name happily. He asked her for the reason she had gone out. She replied to him that she had to buy an item. She presented the bear-shaped bread to him, explaining she purchased it because she thought it was as cute as he was. Caprio seemed surprised by what she said, and asked if she truly believed that he was cute. She assured him that he definitely was. Then she told him to try the bread, also saying the small bear looked like it was pleading to be eaten, just like him. However, Caprio did not understand her words and believed she was suggesting something very violent. She therefore quickly explained that her words did not mean that at all. She sighed because his response was not what she had hoped for, but she was satisfied because the bread was delicious. After that, she informed him about another present and gave him a knotted decoration that she had made all by herself. The original Teresa had spent nearly all of her time locked inside the attic and had no chance to go to classes or socialize like her sister. During all of those long hours, creating these knotted decorations had become her one and only hobby. She told him she was able to finish this item in the carriage and promised that when she was older, she would buy him an expensive gift, but for now, she could only give him something she made herself. Caprio smiled with happiness and told her that he liked this present exactly the way it was. Caprio showed his immense happiness with the gift, telling Teresa he would cherish it until he died and even beyond, which Teresa thought was a slight exaggeration. She tried to minimize it, telling him it was fine if he wore it a couple of times and then discarded it, and that she would not get angry. But she then recalled what Caprio said earlier about his father, the Duke, and how he was sad and sullen for a while over a similar event. She determined the Duke held on to things and held grudges, and she chose to remember this information. After that, she recalled that she had not finished making the presents for the Duke and the Duchess yet. She also hoped they would not feel disappointed if she was late when she finally gave the gifts to them. She ran to the Duchess in the garden, who saw she was a bit late. Teresa explained she stopped at Caprio's room first to give him his gift. Then she informed the Duchess that she had also wanted to buy her a present, but she was unable to find anything appropriate. The Duchess smiled and asked her if she had truly been thinking about giving something to her. Teresa told her that she was only able to buy these bracelets today and made a promise to bring her another gift later. The Duchess shocked her by saying this was sufficient, and then she simply asked Teresa to share the bracelets with her. Teresa hesitated initially, believing the bracelets were too cheap and not suitable for the Duchess, but she agreed when the Duchess asked if she did not want to share. When the Duchess put on the bracelet, it appeared very beautiful on her wrist. To Teresa's eyes, it changed from a cheap bead into a precious jewel. Teresa expressed her joy, saying it felt like they had selected the bracelets with each other, but the Duchess coldly said they were just two beads with the same shape in different colors. Teresa felt very frustrated, since her kind approach did not seem to have an effect on the Duchess. Just then, the Duke arrived and asked the two of them why they were there. Teresa informed him she had gone out to buy some presents and had already given one of them to the Duchess. The Duke's eyes became bright with excitement as he asked her about the gift that was for him. Teresa suddenly recalled Caprio's words about his father and how he was an extremely petty and resentful person, so she told him with some confusion that she had not brought his present with her yet. The Duke's face changed right away and showed extreme anger, which made Teresa feel terrified. She quickly tried to fix the situation, assuring him his gift was still being made and that she would certainly give it to him the next day. The Duke became calm and said that he would believe her. Then he turned around and walked away. Teresa felt extremely stressed and silently prayed he would not have very high expectations, fearing his anger would grow if he felt disappointed. The Duchess saw the situation and remarked that Rick, the Duke's nickname, appeared to truly like her. This surprised Teresa. The Duchess reassured her and advised her not to feel any pressure, promising her that Rick would be pleased with any gift from her. She also said that it was impossible for her to purchase something that was better than what they currently owned. Teresa found this to be very logical. The following day, after she had worked hard through the night, Teresa finished creating a knotted ornament for the Duke. As she was hoping that he would like the gift, and that the Duchess was correct, she saw him exiting his room. The Duke saw Teresa and asked why she was there, reminding her that it was time for breakfast. Teresa went to him and called him Dad. She then gave him the knotted ornament, explaining it was the present she had promised him. The Duke accepted the gift and confessed that he did not think she would really bring him anything, which surprised her. However, he then smiled and gave her his warm thanks. She felt very happy and told him not to think of it as a big deal. That evening, Teresa was unable to fall asleep. She felt excited and nervous simultaneously because the next day they would finally leave for the duchy, and she had a fluttering feeling in her chest. However, she felt relieved since her body had recovered slightly. Dr. Elena had described the improvement as being as small as a cat's hair. She glanced out her window and noticed the Duchess standing in the garden, who was surrounded by a strange blue aura. She went outside to meet her and asked why she was still awake at this late hour. The Duchess responded that she was just about to ask her the very same question. Both of them confessed to one another that they were unable to sleep. The Duchess looked at an object in her hand that was giving off holy power, and Teresa knew this was causing her unease and the fluttering. She then thought about Caprio. The Duchess explained Caprio would be confined again upon reaching the duchy, and when she had asked what he wanted, this was his one request. She referred to the duchy as being like another den of serpents. Teresa asked if she was certain about leaving without first meeting the Saint Moria, her older sister. She pointed out that Caprio's condition could improve if he had a meeting with her. Teresa also said the Duchess could have used her, as Saint Moria's sister, to get access to her. The Duchess disclosed that Teresa's father, the Count, had said something to her when he initially brought her over. He said that Teresa had grabbed Moria by the collar and assaulted her. Teresa laughed nervously and claimed it was in self-defense. The Duchess confessed that she first thought about using Moria's power, but in the end, she decided against it. She did not want to use Teresa for that specific purpose, because doing so would make them just like Teresa's own family. She also said she thought about bringing Moria by force, but Caprio informed her that it would not be effective. The reason was that he finally understood that a monster could only create another monster. When she heard the words "another monster," Teresa instantly recalled Caprio's question about if she got along with him, because she was also a monster. Teresa felt shocked and wondered if he had actually taken her quick agreement seriously. She told the Duchess she did not understand his meaning, and the Duchess answered that she did not understand it either. The Duchess then continued, stating that gathering monsters could be better than trying to please the villains at the temple. She also swore that after she removed the sealing curse from Caprio's body, she would erase all traces of those villains from the world. The Duchess also said that by doing this, she would not need to worry about being scolded for attacking Moria. Teresa felt a pain inside her chest, but this was a different feeling. It was warm and very emotional. She understood then that the members of the Duke's family were the only people in this world who cared for her this much. A dark memory from the original novel returned to her, which was that every member of this kind family would be killed by Caprio when he lost his sanity. The Duchess saw her sad expression and thought she was happy about what she heard, but looked tired, so she asked with concern if her fever was back. Teresa thought about the Duchess before her. This ex-princess, who was the true power of the Duke's family, must have lived a very difficult life. She had a son who was labeled a monster. Despite everything, she stayed a strong person who was never afraid to be kind. Teresa felt very moved, so she took the Duchess's hands, thanked her for her kindness, and promised she would do her very best for the Duke's family. She made a promise to herself that she would never allow this kind mother to die. The Duchess was surprised at her response and said she thought Teresa might ask to be sent to a different family. Teresa gave the Duchess a warm hug and told her that she really loved this place and that she loved her. She also added that the Duchess was the most beautiful person that she had ever seen in her entire life. The Duchess smiled and said her words were like Rick's words, and she hoped she would continue to amuse her this way at the duchy. Teresa agreed. At last, the day that they were scheduled to depart had arrived. Teresa noticed a strange woman hugging Caprio and complaining about his poor condition, saying he had become completely withered. Dr. Elena explained to her that this woman was the Viscountess Rose. She was Caprio's old governess before his time in the Serpent's Den, and she had hurried to come right after she heard he was released. Elena felt bad for the Viscountess's condition, as she appeared to be a delicate woman who traveled this entire distance by herself without any guards. Elena also assured her that she had very deep feelings for Caprio. However, the image Teresa had in her mind of a delicate Viscountess was a woman with a powerful body and large, bulging muscles. Teresa attempted to tell herself that she should not be so quick to judge others by their appearances. She screamed internally that this lady was not at all delicate, no matter how much she tried to believe it. At the same time, Elena welcomed Viscountess Rose and thanked her for coming back, and Rose answered that this place felt like her second home. After this, Elena introduced Teresa to Viscountess Rose and informed her that the Viscountess would now be responsible for her care. Teresa came forward and introduced herself as Teresa, wondering if this woman appeared differently in Elena's view. The Viscountess gave her a warm welcome and said that she had heard of her, and Teresa felt something was suspicious. She thought the situation was very odd, because she could not remember a character like this in the original novel. As the Viscountess told her she was excited to work with her, an aura of darkness and thorns appeared around them in Teresa's mind. She then felt certain that a character with such a powerful presence and charisma was not simply a minor character. Then Teresa saw the Viscountess's eye color change for a second, and she concluded she was not a normal person, wondering with worry if she was not human. Teresa was confused. She heard Elena ask Viscountess Rose to look after the young lady on the trip, saying that with Moria nearby, the presence of non-humans was unsurprising. The Viscountess happily agreed to her request. Teresa, meanwhile, was panicking and wondering why she was the only person who saw her in a different form. She felt she had to leave right away so no one would see her confusion, so she told Elena she was going to her room for a minute. Elena called after her and asked that she not be late, while the Viscountess watched her depart with a sly smile. In her room, Teresa felt worried, because if Rose was her governess, they would be spending most of their time together at the duchy. While she was thinking about her next move, someone tapped her on the head, and she screamed out in surprise. It was the Duke, and he asked her why she was acting so surprised. Teresa called him Dad with confusion and asked him why he was there. The Duke said he came to give her a gift, and Elena had told him she was in her room. He handed her a little box as a present to thank her for the gift that she had given to him. Teresa thanked him but asked about the key he gave her. He explained that they had not been able to make the key yet, and it would not be ready until next year. This made Teresa scream internally, as she thought this present was completely ridiculous. But she quickly calmed down and put on a smile, giving her thanks and saying she was looking forward to next year. The Duke smiled and accepted her thanks, but cleverly remarked that her face suggested she wanted to throw the gift away. Teresa quickly denied this while silently cursing his smarts. Then, he seriously requested that she tell him right away if she felt sick during their trip to the duchy. She asked if the journey would be long, and he said yes, explaining they would go part of the way with a carriage and then use teleportation. He also said he was telling her this beforehand because a person with her physical weakness could feel very dizzy from the teleportation. Teresa laughed and told him she was feeling much better now, and that he did not need to worry about her. The Duke did not seem convinced, but he said he was relieved as long as she believed she could manage it. Later on, during their journey in the carriage, Elena noticed that Teresa was not feeling well and that she was sweating a great deal. Teresa tried to reassure her, claiming she was fine and was just feeling nervous, since it was her first time in a carriage in a long while. In reality, this was not the only cause, because Viscountess Rose had not stopped staring at her during the entire trip. She also felt as though the Viscountess was making fun of her with her stares. Elena suggested that they should stop for a little while to get some fresh air. She mentioned the Duchess ordered the carriage to stop at once if Caprio or Teresa felt tired. Teresa was delighted by her mother-in-law's kindness and thought she was the best. She viewed this stop as the perfect chance, so she suggested to Caprio that they should go outside together for some air. Once they were away from the carriage, she told Caprio she had a very important question about Viscountess Rose. She eagerly asked if he also saw her as a large, blonde-haired person and if he saw the change in her eye color. She also added a complaint that the Viscountess kept looking at her in a very strange manner. Teresa was hesitant to ask Caprio about Viscountess Rose's appearance directly, so she began by asking his opinion of the governess. Caprio answered that she was a very tearful person who was not able to do anything by herself. He also said he felt bad for her, so he needed to keep her near him, which left Teresa totally confused by his description. She then understood that Caprio saw the Viscountess as a delicate, weak woman, but she saw a huge person who could hunt a tiger single-handedly. Caprio asked if she disliked the Viscountess, and she said she felt the opposite was true, and that the Viscountess was the one who disliked her. She tried to improve the mood, saying it was a little awkward initially, and that she would try to get along with her. Caprio teared up, saying he thought he would get along with her as well. As for her own thoughts, she believed that only time would tell. At last, they arrived at their destination, which was the Duchy of Gwynedd. After going through the teleportation gate, Teresa felt extremely dizzy and sick, and she understood her father's warning was for a good reason. Viscountess Rose came over to her. She kindly told her not to move until the dizziness stopped, so she would not fall and get injured, as it was her first time using teleportation. Teresa was surprised by her sudden act of kindness and thanked her for it. The Viscountess then asked her not to push herself too hard for a little while. Then, the Viscountess suddenly moved closer to her. She whispered in her ear with an obvious threat, instructing her to leave the duchy right after she got what she wanted. She added that she had no intention of caring for any child other than Caprio. Then she asked her in a sharp tone if she had understood her. Later on, Teresa was resting in her room, following her exhausting arrival at the duchy. She thought her condition would be much better if Viscountess Rose had not given her that threat, which made her more upset. She felt very grateful that she had not yet vomited. Caprio came inside and asked with concern about how she was feeling. She said she felt better, and that it was likely her first time with teleportation. Then she asked if he felt the same dizziness his first time. Caprio became flustered and looked away, saying that he was also feeling dizzy, and Teresa noticed he was avoiding the question. He said that if she was not so tired, they could have taken a tour of the Ducal Palace. He explained the Ducal Palace's name was Crescent Castle, and the forest around it was called the Waning Moon Forest. This forest was famous for being a sanctuary for all types of monsters, so hunting groups were always organized to kill them and gather magic stones. Teresa recalled what the Duchess had said earlier regarding collecting different monsters for Caprio's benefit. Teresa reminded Caprio about what she had previously said about also being a monster herself. He whispered to her that he would make sure to keep her secret safe. He said he would not tell anybody because she should not be locked up the way he was. Teresa felt touched by his sincere feelings, and just as she was going to say she was not a monster, she could not speak. This was after seeing how much he cared. Teresa chose to play along with Caprio's idea and would do her best to also be a monster, so she gratefully thanked him. Then Caprio told her that his governess, Viscountess Rose, was the person who once said to him that only a monster is able to heal another monster. Caprio added he did not understand her meaning then, but he believed he understood it now. Teresa was shocked that this suspicious idea came from Viscountess Rose. This discovery only increased her suspicions of the Viscountess. Later, as she ate her meal, Dr. Elena noticed Teresa's appetite had improved, and she was eating much more than before. Teresa told her with enthusiasm that she would get healthier after she finished her meal, as she wanted to explore the duchy, and Elena praised her resolve. Teresa thought that after she got her health back, she would have the ability to face anything Viscountess Rose might try to do. Elena reminded her that it would be best to begin walking gradually, starting today. She also suggested that she take a walk around the palace with Viscountess Rose after her meals. Teresa was horrified by this idea. In her mind, she rejected the idea completely. Trying to get out of it, she quickly invented an excuse, saying she needed to meet the Duchess immediately after her meal. Elena was surprised and pointed out the Duchess had not said anything about calling for the young lady, and Teresa knew her excuse was weak. Teresa hurried to the Duchess's office and found her there waiting. The Duchess told her she was late and that she had been waiting. Teresa apologized and was confused, since she did not tell anyone she was coming, and the Duchess told her to take a seat. The Duchess informed Teresa that Caprio would start his training to be the heir of the duchy, and the castle gates would be closed for now. She also said His Majesty the King had requested that they at least act like they care about the temple's business. Teresa asked why she was being told all of this. The Duchess explained the official story being told was that a fire started at their home because of the temple's negligence. Teresa was very shocked by this news, and understood the Duchess was referring to the fire that she had started herself. The Duchess confirmed the fire was officially recorded as an accident, and that Teresa was the person who had rescued Caprio and brought him outside. At that moment, Teresa knew the Duchess was aware the whole time that she had started the fire on purpose, and likely just needed a reason to act. Teresa believed the Duchess had required someone to give her a push to finally take a step forward. Her character in the original novel would not have abandoned Caprio, and she would have protected anybody who helped him, which is what she did with her now. The Duchess stated that matters concluded quickly because of His Majesty the King's fast approval. She then presented an official document that had two names written on it: Teresa Estella Nectarine and Caprio Basilius Nectarine. The Duchess asked her if she planned on being called Miss for the rest of her life. She told her she was not the Count's daughter anymore, but she had now become the wife of Prince Caprio. She explained all the official papers were finished, but their wedding ceremony would have to wait until they were old enough. The laws did not permit minor nobles to have anything more than a simple ceremony, and that was not acceptable to her. Teresa asked the Duchess if she had hurried to change her title because of the Count. This led her to think that the Duchess did not want her father's name connected with her at all. Teresa thought that quickly changing her title was most likely a condition of her sale to the Duke's family. However, the Duchess looked at her and told her that she was completely mistaken. The Duchess explained she did it simply because she wanted to. It was her own choice and her personal desire. The Duchess then said that Caprio had shown her something a little bit earlier. He had shown her the look that he makes on his face whenever she tells a small lie. Teresa thanked the Duchess, but the Duchess pretended not to understand, saying she only told the truth. Then she said she had work to do before she departed. She told her to go to Viscountess Rose, which horrified Teresa at the thought of facing her again. Teresa sweetly asks her mother if she can tag along, promising to be very quiet. Even though the place is new, she feels safe and secure just by being with her mom. Her mother hesitates, worried about meeting a certain person, while her health is still fragile. Hearing that she makes her daughter feel safe, the mother's heart melts and she smiles. Her mom agrees to let her come, and the little girl is filled with excitement. Later in the hallway, they join a serious meeting where important people are discussing recent monster attacks. These aren't ordinary monsters. They have special abilities. Defeating them is a great chance to get valuable red magic stones, which are worth a lot of money. As the meeting drones on with a report about crops, the little girl starts to get very sleepy. She struggles to keep her eyes open, wondering if she's still tired from her magical journey. Her mother looks over with a gentle expression, noticing her daughter is about to fall asleep. The world around her becomes a soft, dreamy blur as she finally drifts off. A little while later, she wakes up with a start, feeling a bit confused. A handsome man with white hair is sitting beside her, looking at her with a kind smile. It's the Duke, and he apologizes softly, saying he tried not to wake her. She notices something warm and soft, draped over her shoulders. Realizing it's her mother's robe, she snuggles into its comforting and lovely scent. She feels so happy and cared for, thinking her mother is truly the best in the world. The Duke then surprises her with a gift, gently tying a big, pretty bow in her hair. While she touches her new bow in surprise, he asks if she was out somewhere earlier. She gets a little annoyed when he says he was just having fun while her mother was working hard. She asks if he went somewhere fun like a tourist spot, and he gives a mysterious answer. He then asks if she would be interested in taking a look around the Grand Castle. She feels excited but also a little nervous about wandering around the huge place by herself. He tells her to wait a moment and begins writing something down for her. She watches with curiosity as his pen moves across the paper. The Duke hands her a simple map of the estate, telling her it will keep her from getting lost. He points to one room on the map, explaining it's where a boy named Caprio has lessons. Then, he shows her the location of the artifact storage room on the map. He teases her that she'll like the exhibition hall, which is filled with expensive things. She happily takes the map and thanks him, ready for her tour. As she leaves, the Duke kindly reminds her not to be late for mealtime. She follows the map down a long hallway, deciding to find Cabrion's lesson room first. She suddenly worries, remembering that tutors in stories are often mean and abusive. Standing at the door, she decides she'll tell her mother right away if the tutor is a bully. She carefully peeks inside and hears a girl's voice thanking someone. The voice mentions that someone named Nina got better, thanks to herbs the young master recommended. She's confused when she hears Nina wasn't a person, but an animal that came on its own. Hearing the sound of footsteps, she looks up from her peeking spot. The young master runs towards her with happiness. Oh no! She remembers Caprio has excellent hearing and frets that he heard her spying. Suddenly, a man's voice from inside calls out, identifying her as the young lord's fiancé. He greeted her with a warm smile. He politely introduces himself as Baron Daniel Dawson, the young master's history tutor. She nervously introduces herself as Teresa Nectarine. Teresa feels relieved, thinking he seems like a very kind person and not abusive at all. But then she notices that for a baron, his clothes and shoes look surprisingly old and worn. Her imagination goes wild, picturing the little boy being the one who is mean to the tutor. Shaking her head, she realizes that can't be right, and wonders why a baron would look so shabby. Just then, the Duke appears and rudely tells her to move aside. Startled by his demanding tone, she quickly steps back. He walks right past her and sits down at the table. He has a very stern and scary look on his face, startling her. Teresa is completely intimidated and tries to make herself small. Later, the history tutor announces that since Viscountess Rose is here, he will take his leave. Before he goes, the kind baron bows and says it was an honor to meet her. The young boy Caprio shyly invites her to come sit down with him. Caprio starts to tell her about his friend Nina, who is a very big leopard. He explains that Nina was very sick, but thankfully, she was strong enough to survive. He looks sad as he says he wishes he could go see her now that she's healthy. It's a shame, he explains, because he is not allowed to go outside. She feels a pang of sympathy, remembering that Caprio is confined to the estate. Brightening up, she offers to go visit the leopard on his behalf. She cheerfully declares that she will go and give Nina his best wishes. Suddenly, he declares he shall go as well, making the girl wonder if she's jealous. Cheria thinks to herself that he must be jealous of her getting all of Kibern's attention. Trying to break the awkward silence, Kibern sweetly offers Cheria a chocolate chip cookie. As she takes the cookie, Cheria secretly wonders if the scary Viscountess will really come with them. Cheria nibbles on the cookie, thinking that with an escort, he can't try anything funny. She nervously peeks over and sees the Duke is still giving her a very intense glare. Getting a little brave, Cheria turns and asks him if he has something he wants to say. In response, his eyes just narrow with an even more frightening, angry look. He suddenly stands up from his chair, which makes Cheria flinch. Without saying a single word, he turns around and storms right out of the room. Cheria is completely confused, wondering why he just left, and Kibern explains Duke was just there to check on him. Kibern shivers a little, noticing how much faster winter arrives here compared to the capital. Cheria asks if he gets cold easily, and his little face turns bright red with a blush. He shyly admits that he does, and Cheria can't help but think how cute he is. He looks sad, adding that the cold makes him very sleepy, almost like a snake or something. Kibern's eyes fill with tears, worried that she might think he's weird now. Cheria immediately cheers him up, exclaiming that if he were a snake, he'd be the cutest one in the world. She playfully leans in close, joking that she thinks she's a cute monster, but she'll let him be number one. Kibern blushes from her sweet compliment, a happy and relieved smile appearing on his face. Cheria feels happy and warm inside, blushing from their cute and friendly conversation. The sweet moment makes both of them blush and smile happily at each other. Changing the subject, Cheria asks how his lesson with the Baron was, and he shyly says it was fine. She opens his notebook and is surprised to see pages full of writing with many red corrections. Cheria's jaw practically drops to the floor in shock at how much homework he has. She stares at the book while Kibern looks on, not understanding what's so surprising. She notices two different styles of handwriting on the page, one belonging to the Baron and one to Kibern. It dawns on her that Kibern's elegant handwriting looks just like his mother's. Looking back at the map, she points out that the artifact storage room is now labeled Borin style. Kibern explains that the room used to be filled with ancient, heavy stone tablets. The word valuable catches her attention, and she wonders what they could be. Filled with curiosity, Cheria asks Kibern if they can go check out the room together. With a happy smile, she grabs her map and announces she's heading out to the artifact room. She finds a dark, spooky-looking staircase and peeks down into the shadows. Holding her map tightly, she carefully makes her way down the old stone steps. The room is huge and filled with bookshelves, but she's surprised that no one is guarding it. She wonders aloud. Looking around the mysterious and quiet room, her eyes suddenly land on two large stone tablets leaning against a fancy table. She cautiously walks closer to the strange stones to get a better look. The tablets are covered top to bottom in a strange, ancient writing she's never seen before. To her shock, she can read the text perfectly, which seems to be a list of likes and dislikes. A man's voice suddenly speaks from nearby, asking if she's here to see the tablets. A handsome mage in elegant blue robes introduces himself as Amel Serentium. He smiles kindly, holding a glowing star artifact, and explains that he manages the storage room. Feeling a bit shy in front of the cool mage, Cheria nervously introduces herself. He tells her to just call him Emil, and kindly asks if she's found anything interesting yet. Cheria points back to the mysterious stone tablets that she was just looking at. Emil chuckles, explaining that no one can read the writing on them, not even the best mages. Cheria is stunned, because the list of likes and dislikes is perfectly clear to her. He opens a box to reveal a beautiful, sparkling artifact that looks like a piece of jewelry. Emil offers it to her, explaining it's a special item meant to spread happiness to others. He offers to give her a grand tour of all the other amazing artifacts in the room. As she follows him, her mind keeps drifting back to the stone tablets and her secret ability. Meanwhile, Kibern is blushing and trying to explain why she can read the tablets. He stammers that it's because they are both, monsters, leaving Cheria very confused. Cheria figures it out. She must be able to read the ancient text because she's a transmigrator from another world. She nervously kicks her feet, admitting to Kibern that she was also confused at first. Kibern remembers feeling lonely and different, but now he sees Cheria and feels understood. He gently takes her hand, saying with a happy heart that he feels so relieved she's here. Kibern's face is lit up with pure joy, so glad to have found a friend who is just like him. Teresa is left a little speechless, touched by his sweet and genuine happiness. She gives him a big, bright smile back, telling him that she's really glad too. With his lessons over for the day, Kibern happily suggests they go to the dining hall for dinner. 2 days later, a fancy carriage makes its way through a sunny, green forest. Teresa is on her way to visit Nina, but is very surprised that it's just her and the grumpy Rose. Inside the carriage, she asks why Rose is acting as her bodyguard, and Rose just says she felt like it. Rose explains the Duke and Duchess allow anyone around Kibern, as long as they don't see him as a monster. Teresa is surprised that her new parents-in-law already know that Rose isn't just a normal nanny. She remembers Kibern telling her not to worry before she left the estate. Kibern had told her that Rose promised to behave because her adoptive mother told her not to cause trouble. Teresa decides to give Rose a chance, since she hasn't done anything mean to her yet, except for that one time. Holding her gift box, Teresa beams with a happy smile and decides to trust Rose for the day. She gives a suspicious side-eye to Rose, who just stares back with a grumpy face, making Teresa wonder if she's for real. The carriage wheels creak as they finally come to a stop at their destination. The driver announces that they have arrived at the Dawson Barony. Teresa carefully steps out of the carriage in her cute red ribbon shoes. As she looks around, her jaw drops in complete and utter shock. The Baron's home is just a tiny, run-down wooden cabin that looks like it's about to fall apart. He casually says the Baron's sister spent a fortune, and Teresa shouts, "On what?" Peeking inside, Teresa sees it. A giant, fancy cage holding a beautiful leopard. The leopard, Nina, lets out a huge yawn, showing off her impressively sharp teeth. Teresa thinks Rose must really love animals to live so shabbily, while the leopard has a mansion. Duke suddenly turns to leave, saying, "We've seen it, so let's head back." Teresa stops him, insisting they should at least give the housewarming gift they brought for the Baron. She bravely says she doesn't mind going inside, since it's all for Kibern's sake. Holding the gift tightly, Teresa tells him that he can leave, but she is going to be polite. With a little sigh, the Duke follows her as she marches up to the little wooden house. Inside, Baron Dawson is very grateful to receive the gift of very fine tea leaves. He smiles and tells them to wait a moment while he prepares some fresh tea for them. Teresa and Duke sit down together on a small sofa in the simple, cozy living room. He leans over and whispers, asking Teresa if she's really going to drink the tea. Deciding to be a good guest, Teresa closes her eyes and thinks it's only polite to stay for a cup. He reminds her to act properly for Kibern's sake, but then mentions a strange noise from the ceiling. Teresa gets the chills, hoping it's not rats, and comically wonders why she's the scaredy cat. Baron Dawson returns with a tray, cheerfully apologizing for the little wait. He sets down a warm pot of tea, telling them to drink slowly so they don't burn themselves. While sipping her tea, Teresa asks how Nina got hurt, since she was still covered in bandages. The Baron sadly explains that the poor leopard was attacked by a magical beast. He tells the story of how Nina's mother must have remembered him helping her give birth, and sent Nina to him for help. He remembers feeling hopeless, thinking Nina was too badly injured to survive. In a flashback, we see the Baron and a young Kibern caring for the wounded leopard together. He smiles brightly, saying the herbs that the young master told him about worked like magic. Duke listens to the story quietly, a thoughtful and serious expression on his face. Teresa nearly spits out her tea when he points out that magical beasts prefer to eat people, not animals. He laughs at her terrified reaction, assuring her that the ducal family is strong enough to protect everyone. The Baron proudly says the young master is amazing, and that all animals seem to adore him. His eyes narrow just a little as he listens to the Baron praise Kibern's future potential. Suddenly, a loud banging comes from the front door, and a man's voice shouts for Daniel to open up. The Baron calmly gets up, saying it seems he has an unexpected visitor. A strange man bursts in, holding a wiggling bag, and proudly announcing he caught something rarer than a leopard. Duke asks Dewey what he's doing here, looking annoyed by the sudden intrusion. Teresa looks over with wide eyes, wondering what kind of rare animal he could have possibly caught. Duke's eyes suddenly glow a dangerous red as he senses something very wrong. Teresa shouts as the Duke pushes and makes her hide behind him for protection. Duke angrily yells at the man, asking if he's an idiot for not recognizing a magical beast. Teresa looks up in terror, realizing the man has brought a human-eating monster into the house. Inside the bag is a cute, fluffy but terrifying magical beast that looks like a little rabbit.